And I knew I actually didn't have any cash on me. And I said, hey, do you have your wallet with you? And she said, yeah, that's fine. Luckily, we found a parking garage, so we got there a couple minutes early. But when we got into the theater, she was like, oh, I must have left my wallet at home. We had zero cash on us. I'm not sure that I would have been able to get my car out. So, Bjorn, welcome back to another episode of Life Money You, where we talk about life and money so that you might get some ideas to help yourself out on your journey to financial freedom, which we are both on, always making progress, I hope. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you here is, do you know what you say to motivate a ghost?
I do not.
That's the spirit. Well, I
feel so inspired in the new year.
So inspired, kicking off 2023, because we are going to talk about, I chalk up to motivational posters. Do you have any friends? I always had friends that got those motivational posters, put them on their walls. They always had some saying or cliche and some imagery. You see those things around?
Oh, yeah. They're on Facebook now more than any other place. I have people that post those things.
A lot on Instagram.
Yeah.
Reducing life down to a few words. And in the financial world, we are not immune to sayings. I will call them rules of thumb sometimes. Sometimes they're called laws. People will throw out stuff all the time. I hear some stuff used so often that people don't even question it anymore. And I thought there's always nuance to things. So I asked you to pull together some of your most hated, stay tuned for another episode, we'll talk about our favorites, but our most hated financial or money sayings, things that you have maybe heard over the years, but you've always had issues with. Maybe they ground your gears the wrong way, whatever. But I wanted to go through our top 9 here, share them, explain why we have a problem with them, or what annoys us about them, or what we would critique. And then just to give people some food for thought so that if they hear it, maybe they just don't take it as a law, but maybe think about how it really applies to them. So does that sound fair to you?
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
All right,
I like
cool. I'm expecting a lot of back and forth here. So I thought maybe we would start with the first one. What is one of your most hated financial sayings?
Yeah. First I could think of was that money is the root of all evil. So,
isn't it?
I mean, yeah, this requires an explanation, I think. So let me explain. So I think that we've seen a lot of examples of money ruining people's lives. And there's no doubt, right? People win the lottery. Everybody thinks, ironically, I just went a couple weeks ago and tried to find the person that won the $1 billion Powerball just a couple months ago. I couldn't find the name. I'm not even sure they've gone public. I don't think they have to. So I can understand why. But you just see story after story of people making tons of money, winning the lottery, becoming a professional athlete, going viral, whatever. And it just leads to a lot of financial mistakes. It leads to a life of difficulty, people coming out of the woodworks asking for money, yada, yada, yada. And then in some of the circles that I'm in too, some of my community too, and there's a little bit of trying to be careful about money, not letting money control your life, not focusing on it so much. And there's some truth, I guess. I'll give the truth to this statement in some aspects, but money is a tool and all of us have to use it almost every day, probably every day to some level. Even if you aren't realizing you're using it every day to live in your house, to pay for your food, all the things that we have to do. And I personally believe that overly loving money can be something you want to be careful about. But if you're viewing money more as a tool or as a way to fund your lifestyle or to give to the people you love or to give to other people that don't have money, to steward it, I guess, in a way that offers it to other people or can be used for good things, or if you're viewing it that way, then I totally disagree with this statement that it's the root of all evil, because there are plenty of examples of people who have used it for good. And honestly, I know a number of people, and I read stories and watch videos of people who have become really wealthy, but you would just never know it because they don't inflate their lifestyle. They're super generous. They just don't let it go to their head. And those are great people because they've got a ton of capability to go and help a cause or start a business, and they've got flexibility. They've got independence, financial independence, probably. and freedom and not as much stress, but they don't flaunt it in front of everybody either.
Thank you. That's a very nice compliment, Bjorn.
Yeah, exactly.
I try not
to. And the point here is that, Peter, I was just going to bring this up as a concern I see in your life.
Did you see my new watch? No, I
Yes.
agree. It doesn't this come from the Bible? Isn't this a Bible verse where it's misquoted that people say money's the root of all evil, but isn't it the love of money?
The love of money.
Right? Yeah, and
exactly.
That's the key, right?
Yeah, because you can see people who really love money. They love talking about it on social media. They love sharing every last thing they bought. They like showing off their new car or house or whatever. And that's, to me, like one of the issues of social media is then, like, we're both golfers. We've talked about that. But when you watch golf, you have to remember that it's a highlight reel. You're watching the best players, and then you're watching the best of the best players that particular week. And then you're seeing all of their good shots. You're never, ever seeing any of the bad shots. Like, you never hear about the person that went to Vegas and lost money. You only ever hear about the winners. So it can be easy to skew toward thinking that tons of money brings happiness, and it can to some level. But you do have to be, I think, careful that you're not overly relying on it, because if you are, it can go away too. And we see that with people who have so much, because then they just start thinking, I can afford anything I want. And not even people who win the lottery. There's all of us to some level struggle with this when you start making more money, to not inflate our lifestyle and to not rely on that continuing to come in. And so I just snag anyone from thinking that's where they should place their hope, because it can go away, especially if you're invested. If you're thinking short term, it can go away in the market. This one has always just been a tough one, because I think it's misquoted from the Bible. And I personally feel like it can be used in good ways if you're careful.
And it's just a thing. I feel like it's implying that money's evil. And yet, then why would we ever use some of it? It's kind of like, well, if killing a person is bad, but I only kill a few people a day, not as many as this person, or it's just a thing, right? And, I'm going on the record. Killing other people is bad. But, it's just a thing. And I feel like it holds people back is one of the things. Like, oh, I don't want to be one of those people that only loves money. And so it almost makes you fearful of having success in some ways. And we work so much with trying to get people ahead in life. How hard is it to do that, on top of if you have maybe some sort of idea of, I don't know if I want to make more money in my job because it could just ruin me. It could just corrupt me. And how can you move forward if you're afraid of what is there, I guess? So I just feel like it plants more unnecessary fear in people than it should. I would love to prove that lots of money won't corrupt me, because I'll be the first person with that $1 billion lottery winnings to show you that I will be exactly the same person, except that
I'll be glad to hold you accountable.
Excellent. I appreciate that.
I'll be right there with you the whole step of the way. Okay, number two, right? Number two. Are you going to do number two here?
Two. Yes. Here's the one I picked for number two. There's no getting rich quick. And I hear this all the time. And I hear people actually who sell financial programs and things like this. There's no way to get rich quick, which is funny, because to me, it's like a relative thing. Can you get rich quickly? Would you say, if I were to ask you, Bjorn, would making $1 million in 24 hours be getting rich quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. If I told you that we could make $1 million over the next month, would that be getting rich quick?
Yes.
Yeah. And have people not done that? I saw some stat that it was something like Elon Musk last year was making $10 million a day on average. And it's not like he's working and punching a clock or something. And Elon Musk is not the only billionaire out there. If I were to tell you could make $1 billion in your working years, would that not be getting rich quick? The number is over, let's say it's
right.
20
It's a
years.
good point. Yeah.
I would think that's pretty quick. And I've seen so many people. I think we were talking to recently. I have a friend of mine who had a small business, and she plugged away at it. And then almost overnight, company came and said, hey, we want to buy you. And she was happy to relinquish for 7-8 figures. And is that not getting rich quick? She was providing her an income, and then she could just cash out. I think what happens here is when people say there's no way to get rich quick, what you're conditioning people to is that don't even hope or try. Just follow the same tried and true stuff, but don't think outside the box. Don't try to be creative. There were a lot of people that in the .com days made $1 billion. I would say if you made $1 billion in your lifetime, you got rich quick. Yep. You could be like, listen, I've been working my tail off for the last 10 years on that. That's $100 million a year. So is that not pretty quick? Or $10 million a month or $2 million a week? Is that not quick? So I'm not saying that everyone will get ridiculously wealthy. And I'm saying that it could certainly be the exception, not the rule. But to say there's no way to get rich quick doesn't even compute, because there are ways to get rich pretty quick.
It's all relative, like you said. I was just thinking of another example in the complete other end of the spectrum. We talked when we met with Stephanie about her resale business. I think I said in there that I had hoped to do something in that vein with my daughter, my oldest daughter. And so we actually started a little bit of a resale business. And we're not really spending a lot of time on it, just a couple hours a month probably. But we sold our first 2 items and we made $50. And to my 8-year-old, who has $50 to her name total, we just doubled her income in an hour of work total. So she got rich quick. I mean, in her
faster than me.
But it's all relative, right? Because for you and me, it's okay. That was nice, but $50 is $50. But to her, that was substantial. And that's funding the business now. It's interesting how it really is like a big relative game on that statement, and on both sides, both what you think your time is worth, or how much you're making and how much you could make, or vice versa, like how much you made versus what you used to make or whatever. It's a tricky one.
No, I totally agree. I know a friend of mine once, we were out having some drinks amongst some of the other friends from college, and he was like, our annual bonuses weren't that good. And I put it away, but it was like $69,000 this year. And one of my friends was like, dude, you're rich. You're paying for the idea of getting a $60,000, $70,000 bonus to some people. That is rich. I'm sure some people would look at your life, look at the balances in your bank accounts and be like, I wish I were as rich as you. And I'm sure you would look at some other people and be like, I can't even imagine being as rich as you. But the idea that there's no way to get rich quick, even to say there's no way to make a lot of money overnight. I know some people have done it. They've gone to places that other people don't want to go. They've taken jobs that people don't want to take. There are some ways to do it. I'm not saying that it's super common and it's just a matter of doing it, but don't close yourself off to opportunities when you might have some little flexibility. There's sometimes things flourish, disruptors pop up, and the early movers do very well on it, but you have to be in the mindset of, hey, I'm looking for opportunity and I will take it. So that was my first one. Yep. There's no get rich quick. I hear it all the time. And every time I hear it, I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure that some people are getting rich pretty quick. Not everyone, but some people can do it. So number 3, what do you got there?
Number 3 is credit cards are evil.
Oh, they are. So what's controversial about that?
Actually, I'm going to get my big scissors out. We're going to cut up some cards right now.
Bjorn, right?
So some of you may know some strong personalities in our space that are against credit cards. And like the conversation we just had about money, yes, you need to be careful around them, but there are a lot of benefits to having a credit card. I can think of 3 right off the top of my head. Number 1, it helps you build your credit score up, which can actually save you money down the road by having a higher credit score. You get better rates on good debt, your mortgage. If you have a 500 credit score versus an 800 credit score, it's going to have a massive financial impact on your life, depending on the loan you get. Credit cards can also be backup for emergencies. I think I wouldn't necessarily have it be my first choice, but I think it can be there. And we actually were having a conversation recently about that, about using your credit card if you really had to. And it's not like the end of the world. If you had to float some money for a few months, even though the interest rate's high, the actual dollars you'd pay in interest isn't overwhelming if you just had it for a few months, right? If you're talking for years and years, of course it can add up, but it can be backup support for there. And then just think about the cash back and travel rewards you can get through credit cards. I know you've used credit cards to pay for vacations. I use it to pay for vacations and for all different kinds of things through the cash back that I get. So I think to blanket statements say that they're evil, you should never have them, I think is wrong. I think that you can have them. I pay them off every single month. I thankfully have never missed a payment. I know that's not everybody's reality, but I think you can use them wisely, even if you just use them for certain things, like use them just for gas or use them just for groceries. It's not all or nothing either, but you can use them responsibly and get benefit out of them. I know there's back and forth on studies that have, one study that says you spend more. I know that there's some others that debunk that a little bit, but I do think there's some aspect of the ease of swiping. Now you don't even need to swipe. You just tap, or you've got it loaded already into your computer and it just instant buys basically anything you want. So there's an aspect of being careful, but I think maybe a little more tied to your sort of psychology or mindset versus the actual card itself. It's a little bit more about going to the grocery store hungry kind of mentality than it is about the ease of the payment. So all in all, I'm not against credit cards. I think that we don't all just get credit card rewards because the credit card companies are feeling bad for us. There are people paying for that through interest. And there are plenty of people who misunderstand credit cards and think that they should carry a balance and pay the minimum so that they can help their credit score, not realizing that they're paying tons of money to have that money on loan to them, essentially. So there are issues, but to blanket statement say, never have them, cut them all up, never use them, to me, it's more of a bigger problem of like your mindset about money. I mean, you could spend cash uncontrollably too. You could go to the blackjack table and just keep putting down 20s and keep spending like that. If you have a spending problem or you have no self-control, then that is a bigger issue that really doesn't involve the credit card. That's something deeper. That's where talking with an expert can help and that sort of thing. But I think they can be used for good. I think you do need to be careful, but I think there's obviously plenty of people who are using them fine.
I totally agree. I just feel like there are a lot of people that call credit cards evil. Big personalities, small personalities. It's listed as bad debt if you look at the financial literature out there. And the problem to me with it is it's just another product. You can choose to use it or not use it. You can choose to use it responsibly or not responsibly. The issue to me is when we say that credit cards are evil or the credit card debt or the line of credit is evil, what I think we're doing, in my opinion, this could be a little controversial here, is that we are pushing the blame away from where it probably should sit. There are many times when I should take the blame for my behavior, the results of my behavior. There are lots of times when any individual should just suck it up and say, this happened because of my decision. And when we say, hey, it's the credit card that took advantage of me, we're shifting off that blame. And it's really hard to change our behavior. It's really hard to own up to what's going on if we have this mentality that we can shift the blame or point the finger at someone else. And so that's one of the reasons I just don't like the phrase that the credit card's evil or any of the other. People say that about payday loans, that the payday loans are evil. The payday loan is just a product. And for some people, they are helpful to people, but it's the use. And I want to get people out of the habit of needing the credit card or the payday loan or whatever it is. And if you don't need it, I think there are huge advantages. You may not be old enough, Bjorn, but I remember traveling with these money belts where you would put your cash in a belt and you put it around your waist or under your shirt, because when you were on vacation, you go somewhere, they didn't accept credit cards, or I didn't have credit cards. Travel with traveler's checks. It was a security risk. I think credit card now provides you not only some personal security by not having all this cash, but also that financial security if it gets stolen.
Totally.
The credit card covers that through their fraud department and those types of things. So there's a lot of advantages, I think, of credit cards. It's not just all one-sided, but yeah, if people are warned off about them, reluctant to use them because of what's in here as opposed to what's in their wallet, then I think people could be worse for wear for it. So I agree. I think that's a great one. The next one I want to get to is number 4, I think, if I'm doing my math right, is that money can't buy happiness. I actually think that this dovetails very well with money's the root of all evil that you were talking about. And I think this one gets extended too much into other things is my issue. Because I would agree that money itself does not buy you happiness. Just having money cannot make you happy. These are decisions that are of the head and the heart, right? Your mentality and your psychology and all these other things. But what I'm saying here is that I think this gets twisted to money can't buy me happiness. I don't even need to pursue it. I need to just find my happiness. And that's fine too. And if you can be happy without money, I think you can be happy with money. I think if you are unhappy without money, you might be unhappy with money, but you might also be happy with money. I see, especially the people that we work with, low-income communities, places that people don't have savings or emergency savings, a lot of concern, worry, competition, lack of cooperation, lack of community, a lot of things that you see maybe more of in communities that are flourishing, communities that have resources, that people are more financially secure. I'm not saying that having money, having financial security guarantees you happiness. But I see people with opportunities to do the things that they want to do in life, to give their kids and their family the experiences that they want, express their love and gifts and charity, like you were saying, and do good for the world. They probably are most prominent in the households that have those financial resources. So while I'm saying that just adding money to the equation does not guarantee you happiness, I think it offers a lot of peace of mind. And with that peace of mind, security, and freedom, you can go out and find happiness. You can go and make your impact and dent on the world and do those things. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we often hear that phrase and we think, I'm guilty of this too. I often am thinking wealthier, like I'm thinking like making more than what I'm making now. And will that make me happier? But like, we have to remember here that America in general is a really wealthy nation. Even our poorest people are wealthier than most people in the rest of the world. And I get it's relative because of how much things cost. But if you are able to make more money so that you can have food every day, you're wealthy compared to the rest of the world. Because there's a lot of people in the world that don't get to eat every day or barely get to eat anything every day, or they have to work all day long to just eat one meal, or they have to walk 8 hours to get water just to be able to cook. So if you go the other direction, then I do think money can bring happiness, because if happiness is just basic needs being met in just a daily fashion, I'm not even talking like ultimate convenience here. I'm just talking about getting to have 3 meals a day, getting to have breakfast every day versus not being able to eat for 2 days because there's no money. That's where I think it almost makes it easier to explain it that way than if you're talking about like a middle class person becoming an upper middle class person. I think that's where, at least as Americans, our mind tends to go first, is into that category. And then it's like, what do you need? Another car, another vacation? Is that bringing happiness? That's where I think if you can turn that more into the philanthropic type things, or like maybe you're giving to your family, or you're having people over, you're giving to your community, like you're the sharing of your wealth with others. I think that can make it easier to make the case for it there. But like on the flip side that I was just talking about, that's where I can really see it. I can honestly say, yeah, I do think it can bring some level of happiness, because holy cow, it makes a big difference if you're making enough to get those basic things.
And if you were to ask people, like, what would make you happy? Strip out the money. I'd like to be home more. I'd like to work less. I'd spend time with my kids, see them grow up. I would love to allow my kids to go to colleges that I didn't have an opportunity to. I would love to live closer to my parents so that I could take care of them in the old age. Couldn't we enable some of those things by having more money?
I agree.
So it's not that the money creates the happiness, but money gives us more opportunity. And I think with more opportunity, we have more chances to be happy. And when we don't have money, we almost have no opportunity at all except to be stressed about the money. And it is really hard to find any happiness, any contentment when you're under duress. So that's why I picked Money Can't Buy Happiness, because it's not that I don't agree with that in and of itself. It's that I think it is extended beyond, it is interpreted as, like you said, 20% more money. It won't make me 20% happier. No, I don't think it would. But that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, like, where I see poverty, I don't see a lot of happiness. But where I see plenty in charity, I see more contentment. We're just talking about playing the odds here. I think that was number 4.
Yep.
So that moves us on to numero 5.
Number 5, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
Ooh.
It's a tricky one. It's a good continuation of what we were just talking about. I think this is almost a little bit more of the mindset, I would say, that people have, or the mentality versus the money itself. I think one way to look at it, just as I'm just playing out some different examples. Yes, there's an aspect of, I guess, wealthy people putting their money to work for themselves or for in investments or in different things. Not all their money is going to just basic necessities. It's able to go to work for them. And so there's an aspect of that growing over time versus maybe somebody who's poorer and has more basic needs to meet with what they're making. And so there's less going there. But I think if you're thinking about just the mindset, I think there are plenty of people who are poorer or not making as much that have more of that kind of hustle, grind out mentality that will lead them to work harder. They'll just work harder. And that combined with maybe different opportunities, different education, like different things that kind of might get added in, could allow them to have the work ethic to grow their income substantially over time. So I don't think that always means that they get poor. I think if poorer get poorer and rich get richer or vice versa, it could just be more about motivation than really anything. And that's something that isn't really necessarily directly correlated with money. That's more just like either how you grew up or your type of personality or like how you think about the world. Are you a victim or are you somebody that's going to take the bull by the horns and try to go and accomplish some things? So I think, again, can't really make this a blanket statement because there are people on both sides that do it differently. There are rich people who are lazy because they've made money and they don't have to do anything, and they actually won't get richer because they're just going to blow through the money that they have. And there are poor people who work super hard and can grow their income over time. And honestly, I think sometimes people who are making less have learned to just get by on less, obviously. And if they keep keeping things limited or not overextending themselves mentality, that actually to me is way more powerful than more income, because that's the part that can be honestly controlled or kept at that level as you make more. And then your math starts to work out pretty nicely. If you've learned to get by on like bare minimum, it's so hard to change it, right? Like when you inflate your lifestyle and you get to a certain point, like it is so hard to bring it back down unless you are forced to do it. I don't like this one because I think that there's just too many examples of it being completely opposite of this from my experience.
I agree. And I feel like at the base level of this quote, one of the problems I have with it is it sounds like you're predestined for something. If you're rich, you're rich. But especially if you're poor, why even try? The system is rigged against you. You're always going to be poor. You try, the rich are just going to take it away from you. There's no issue. And I feel like people can get into the cycle of, man, I'm never going to have anything. And I tell you what, you say these types of affirmations long enough, yeah, you're never going to get that promotion.
Yeah.
I'm never going to get a promotion because, you know, they don't like me at my job. So you just phone it in at your job. Guess what? You're just going to stay at your level forever, and you're making this a self-fulfilling prophecy in some ways. I tell you, I have been poor. I've been worse than poor because I have been massively in debt with a very limited amount of income, where I thought if I don't eat, pay taxes, don't sleep, have no expenses, it's still going to take me years to pay off this debt. In fact, my student loan, I think it took me 12 years from graduation to retire the last of that student loan. So there have been times when my net worth number has been poor. Not, you didn't have anything, but it was negative by a big number. And there was no way. I didn't have a mindset that, oh man, I'll even buy a place or own a car or any of this stuff. So you don't necessarily have to break out of it. But if I had just been controlled by something like this, thinking like, why even bother? You're just going to stay poor. I think, man, it's just such an easy trap to get into and just wallow in. So I like that one as well. Yep. That brings us to
Next
number
up. 6.
All right. Number 6. I picked a movie quote. This is, if you build it, they will come. And the reason I picked this one is because I think a lot of people think about small businesses, side hustles, doing stuff on the side. I work with a lot of people and coming up with some way to make some extra income. And I don't know how this phrase got into the psyche the way it did. And the idea was this guy was supposed to build this baseball diamond out in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, and they didn't know that if it was going to make any money. And James Earl Jones says, if you build it, they'll come, and people will pay $20, $50 to see it. And the idea, I think, is that, or the implication is that if you put in a certain amount of effort, you will get a certain amount of value back. It is really based on the effort you put in, and there's so much more to it. It's the value that it provides. It's the market demand out there. There's all these things, and so many people just kind of believe that my effort is going to result in some sort of compensation, and that's just not how it works. It can. Some hard labor can definitely get rewarded with money or a business or a growing business or demand or clients, but it's not just because you put in effort. You can spend all day digging a hole in your lawn and filling it back up, and that's a lot of effort, but no one's going to give you money for it.
Yeah, I was thinking that a good example is like doing house repairs. If you go online and look up,
literally build it.
Yeah, like exactly. Yeah, there are best ROI for your dollar things in your house. Like doing kitchen is number 1 and bathrooms is number 2 or whatever it is. But let's just say that you're in a market where home prices are crashing. It does not matter that you just spent $20,000 on your new kitchen if home prices are crashing. You can try to list it for $20,000 more than what you bought it for, or depending on the timing. But the market is going to drive what people are going to pay for it, and so there's maybe some aspect of getting something back, but the market is a pretty big driver on what's going to happen there. That house is a particular one, I think, because home improvements are a big thing for a lot of people that own a house. You have personal value you've associated with your house. Like even if anyone listening has ever sold a house, you feel personally tied to that and you have a value you've associated with it. And like you can have all these things that you think make the house at that value, that price, but then, interest rates are high. People aren't buying houses. Like it brings down the home prices. There's all these factors out of your control that could bring it into a different category than you were ever even thinking. And that can be really hard because it has like kind of nothing to do with what you did. So to your point, just because you put in all that money, that time, that energy, doesn't necessarily 100% guarantee you're going to get that same value out of it.
I even say good market or bad market, just because I remember watching like house flippers where they got a kitchen and put it in and they think it's beautiful, but nobody coming through thinks it's beautiful. They're thinking, oh, I'm going to have to gut this. And they're like, I put $50,000 in this kitchen. It doesn't matter what you put into it. You could have put 500, but if someone loves it, and it's worth $50,000, they'll pay that. But if you made it to your style and nobody else likes it, then it's not worth it. So it's one of those things where it's something from a movie that had to do with a fantasy scene, and it's really not based on anything. I've never seen it in a business book. I've never read about it in some sort of like strategy workshop or anything. And it's weird because I hear it a lot, right? Or I at least see the philosophy being acted out in a way that they believe that the inputs will directly result in outputs, and it's just not the way it works. I just want to caution people, especially when we're thinking about, hey, where can I put in some money? I've got this great idea to build this business on the side, and you're not thinking about like the demand and will people pay for it and all this stuff, but it's a really smart idea. No one's had it. It's really unique. It's going to take me a year to put this thing together. I'm going to have to dump a lot of money into it, and you could end up with a big goose egg on your hands.
Totally. Yep.
The next one is
number
yours.
7.
Yeah.
Number 7 is cash is king.
Oh,
wow.
Johnny Cash.
Yeah, he is the king. He's the king.
Well, wasn't it Elvis?
Oh yeah, he's also the king. There's lots of kings.
So much royalty.
So this one I feel like is so overused. In a true sense, cash does have an impact because it's sort of money in your hand. You've got it right here. Right now I can exchange that. But with the rise of electronic payments everywhere, I'm just thinking of like even the donut shop by my house. I take my kids there pretty often, and unfortunately they had to go to a no cash situation because they got robbed a few times.
Oh.
And which is sad, but it just goes to show that even like a cash-based business that was, like they have completely changed now to all electronic. So cash is not king there because you can't even use it. They won't take it. You have to use an electronic payment. So if you think about like tap on your phone and cards, and online purchases where you've got your cards stored. I just think about the coin shortage. That would seem like a big deal, but it really hasn't been that huge of a deal because who's using coins? If you go to Aldi, you need a quarter, but not many people are using coins on a daily basis. And so to say that cash is king, I just think there's just so many examples of where that doesn't matter. I've even heard that if you walk into a furniture store, walk in somewhere with cash, like I think even some experts say that you can go and talk them down on price. And that's like never worked for me. I think it can work in some places, but I think there are other places where that doesn't really matter because they're not on a cash
different than them
base.
taking your credit card.
That's the part I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand. I guess maybe because, I think in some cases it could make a difference, but if they're like a modern day business that accepts all forms of payment, then I don't know why they would take less.
It's like I was selling my house and I had two offers, and one was cash and the other was higher, but they were financing part of it. Like, what do I care?
Yeah.
I would take the higher offer. I don't care where the money's coming from particularly. It's not my responsibility to make sure that they pay their mortgage, but I'm going to take the best deal for me. So I totally agree. And I almost never have cash. It's funny when you have to schedule a run to the ATM because, oh my gosh, we're going to need some cash. It was interesting. We went and saw The Lion King over the holidays, my wife and I. Haven't seen it, but it's a limited run thing. The costumes and the music are amazing. And it's all right. My costume that I wore there was better. But we were running a little late, and I was like, we might have to use the valet. And I knew I actually didn't have any cash on me. And I said, hey, do you have your wallet with you? And she said, yeah, that's fine. Luckily, we found a parking garage, so we got there a couple minutes early. But when we got into the theater, she was like, oh, I must have left my wallet at home. We had zero cash on us. I'm not sure that I would have been able to get my car out of LA if I had actually done that. So
that's crazy.
That's how often just assume I have a few bucks on me, but I didn't have any cash. So cash was definitely not king. I would have been like, hey, Venmo is king, because I would have talked to the valet guy and been like, hey, do you have a Venmo code? I got to hit you up with electronic payment because I don't have the cash. So
cash, right. These days, cash is almost
a liability,
almost a liability, almost irrelevant. And I was even thinking about the fact, like, I do typically go get some cash just so that we've got a little bit, and I'll give some to my wife and to myself. But if I really think about it, we blow through that cash way faster than anything else. Because we have it, we use it. And so it's almost flipped.
The reverse behavioral incentive. Oh,
exactly.
Man.
Wait, now I see it. Now I've got it to use. I can go spend
Maybe
it.
Our training will be give yourself no opportunity to have access to any funds at all. You won't have any credit cards, no lines of credit, no cash even. You just have to go and eat the leftovers off of the plates in the restaurant before they get bussed off the table.
Oh, man.
It's a strategy I've actually heard before. Number 8. We're getting close to the 9th here. Number 8. I have just listed good debt. So if you have been in this business, or maybe you've taken student loans or mortgage or something, you've probably heard like the idea, hey, this is good debt, this is bad debt. And the idea here is that good debt is stuff that can appreciate and return on value. And bad debt is like just consumer debt. You're putting the meal on the credit card and you're eating it, right? Is there no value to the meal? But what I don't like about this is that I think in recent years we have seen, is there really such thing as a good debt? The housing market crashed in 2008. A lot of people took mortgages that were told is good debt. Over the long run, homes appreciate in value. You won't lose money. Yet homes went down 40, 50% in some markets, right? So was that good debt? Or is it just like good debt most of the time kind of a deal? We saw the idea that you get student loans because that's investing in your education, your earning potential in the future. But now we have this crisis of $1 trillion in student loan debt out there without people being able to pay it off. And you talk about forgiving student loan debt because people don't have the capacity to pay it off. Was that good debt then? It certainly was listed as good debt. I think labeling debts, like you said earlier, is just a tool. Labeling them good or bad kind of gives people, in my opinion, like permission to load up on these good debts, and without any kind of consideration for what can I manage personally, what makes sense for me personally. And I just believing that no matter what I take, it will get paid off. Or is there some sort of calculus to this? Am I doing some forecasting personally on it? So I don't like the idea, honestly, of bad debt either. It's just debt, and it's something that you have to really think about at the micro level if it's relevant to you, and stop getting conditioned by these labels we put on things. And I think in many ways it's the financial institutions that are lending and calling this good debt. And so what incentive do they have? They want to lend it out. So let's just stop with the labels of good debt, bad debt, better than. It's just debt. And it can get away from you, or it can be a tool to, I know some people who have financed their whole company, small business. They launched it and it was their key to financial freedom. So in that way, that was good debt, but that wasn't necessarily like a good plan for everyone. What are your thoughts on that? Good debt, bad debt?
If you had unlimited amount of money, would you like to pay for your house in cash or take out good debt? I think everyone would probably choose to pay for it in cash if they had unlimited money, right? If there was like they were invested as much as they needed to be, and yada, yada.
Again, let's not make this whole episode about me, Bjorn.
Yes, I'm sorry to bring you up again. I do think that, there's that kind of giving people permission. I think particularly my biggest struggle is the student loan, because houses, I think for most people, they're not going to be able to pay for a house in cash, and they are going to have a mortgage. And you do hope if you stay there long enough that it will increase in value, but you never know for sure. Student loans, that's the frustrating one, because it's like labeled as good debt, investing in your education, which, like you said, gives, I think, way too much permission to just load up on student loans. And that one is, I feel like it is irresponsible for schools. Like the school I went to, two of the most common majors coming out of there are pastors and teachers. And as far as I know, pastors and teachers are not usually making like the highest incomes. And to have students pay a private college education, funding that through loans, it just feels like irresponsible for the school to pitch it that way. To even have a whiff of, this is good debt, don't worry, this is funding your future. Even that stat that you're going to earn, I think, over $1 million more if you have a college degree versus not, which could be true. But what if like half of that has to go to your student loan? Is that really worth it? And I think that's becoming part of the calculus that people are starting to do now. As colleges get more expensive, starting salaries haven't gone at the same pace. It's not like people are starting at a six-figure starting salary. They're still in the $40,000 to $60,000 range probably, or maybe less, depending on your major. And that's been that way for a long time. So I think to imply that, oh, you're fine, take out debt, take out student loan debt, and then you have these people entering the workforce. And I think you even shared that you had a lot of student loans to have to pay off too. And that one doesn't feel right for me because you're trying to help kids, but then it's like in the background is the school that has to make money, and they're not going to have anybody come if they can't offer loans. So it's a tough one. I'm not sure the answer, but I think there will have to be some changes.
You can't charge student loans the way you can. There's all sorts of things that are catches on the back end, like you said. And I agree with you. The student loans, like you said, are a problem because, again, who's the beneficiary of you taking more student loans? The colleges. And so the colleges push for more financing because then they can raise their tuition. More people can pay that tuition because of the financing. And who has the biggest incentive to tell you to finance that education? I feel like it's the colleges. And so there's no incentive right now for them to reduce it because there's no lack of demand for the school and money chasing that demand. And so I think a lot of things to change to get that cycle broken a little bit. But like you said, the $1 million, I've heard that too, over the course of your lifetime with a college degree over not. But I wonder, if you were to go into the workforce, say like in a trade, for 4 years before all of your peers do, because, you go into welding or plumbing or something like that. Now you have 4 years of money that's going to compound, right? That's savings. And these people are coming in 4 years later, but now can't necessarily save for however many years they're going to pay off those student loans. Do you make $1 million more if you have, say, a 10-year head start? Or in my case, I really wasn't saving for the first decade I was out of college because I was trying to get those debts paid down.
Yep.
Would someone with 14 years head start be better off than me? I could say that I don't know that I'll ever catch up, to be honest. Who knows? Maybe I'm trying, which is why we're on the path to financial freedom. But I agree with you. To me, it's just debt. And I'm not opposed to debt. I am not pro debt or anything like that. It's just a tool. And if it fits your needs, then look at it, make your best informed decision, but don't just willy-nilly get caught up with the, that's good, take it. That's good debt. Load up.
Yep.
So here we are, sitting at the end with number 9. We are going to round it out on something that, I think is going to be controversial. What is number 9?
Yep.
9.
Number 9 is there is no free lunch. I feel like I've gotten a lot of free lunches in my time. This one I feel like I learned back in college economics class or something. Maybe it was even high school. I don't know. And I get the concept, right? The concept here is that there's always a hook. No, just think of like the timeshare, right? You go to a resort, you sit down, they give you, free time at the pool or a free great lunch, but you got to listen to the sales pitch. You can choose to not buy the timeshare. You can choose to not shop at the store, use the coupon. I mean, that's more of a self-control issue in my mind. And I can tell you that my wife and I, we sign up for every single retailer we possibly can that offers any sort of regular like coupon deal or anything. And I get that the company's thinking, hey, advertising, I've got their email address, I can keep pushing stuff, but there's plenty of places like fast food places, like there's a Chinese place and other places where we just wait till we get the coupon and then we go, and then we don't ever go there until we get another coupon. And so in my mind, like we are going to get in the free lunch because I'm not spending more there. I'm just spending what I would normally spend, except I'm getting a coupon every single time I go, and I'm actually saving a lot of money doing that. So I think that there are ways to get the free lunch, if you will, if you're able to have the self-control. It is hard. I personally would find it hard to go to a timeshare presentation and get an extravagant day at the clubhouse and whatever, and maybe even a free stay or a free night, and not feel like I need to reciprocate, which I think that's a tough one because we're reciprocal people. It's hard to accept a gift and not feel like you have to return a gift. And so That's that they're playing into all that psychology, and they hope that you'll be thinking about that and you'll be thinking, wow, that was so great. I'd love to have a week there. But obviously there are plenty of people who don't do that. They don't buy it, and they do get the free thing that came with it. And it helped them save $500 on their vacation. I think you can, if you're someone that has self-control, that can say no, that can really just, I guess, make each of these things distinct in your mind, like going is not tied to buying, then I think you can actually have some free lunches. But I don't like this one because it just implies that you can never go to any sales pitch and not buy something. It almost makes me feel like it's saying that humans are not smart. We have no self-control. We have no power to say no. We're always going to buy every time we get pitched to. It's like none of us do that. You get pitched all day long through advertisements, and not everybody buys every last little thing. I don't know. That one's a struggle for me.
If this were true, wouldn't Costco always be sold out of the microwavable quiches? Because people are taking, exactly. let's get a box of the microwavable quiche.
Yep, gotta get the quiches. Yep.
I just don't ever reciprocate. But no, I hear what you're saying. And
we're talking about you again.
Has been part of my career before, where we have offered lunches and dinners to come hear our presentation about our products or whatever. And so it's not necessarily to force people to reciprocate to buy. It's a way that you can get someone to an event, and hopefully they will buy because of your presentation, the value that you're presenting to them, the story that you're giving them, and explaining the services that they can get that they can't get anywhere else. I have gone to many presentations, especially investment presentations. They're done over lunches or dinner. They tell you about their products. They tell you what they think about the market. I get a lot of value out of that. I don't walk away thinking, oh, what I should do is invest my money with them because of the meal. What I'm intrigued by is maybe their philosophy on investing or their products and services. And ultimately, I'm going to make that decision that, because it's my money, that I am going to either do business or not do business with them because I care about being a steward of my own money. Yes, I get the idea that there's always something, there's always some sort of incentive or motivation behind other things. But the reality is, like you said, we all have free will here. Assuming that you're not getting pushed in a corner and getting a hard sell on something. Hopefully, we're adults, and maybe we should do a presentation on adulting and being able to make those decisions, being able to taste the quiche without feeling obligated to buy the quiche or the granola or the croissant ramp bagels or whatever it might be. So I think a lot of people do it, but then they think, hey, if I do this other one, I'm going to get roped into it. And I tell you what, if you are that type of person or personality that you don't think you're going to be able to say no to the timeshare, then I wouldn't go. I would probably try to avoid it. But if you know that you can say no and that you can leave, or hey, you don't have money to buy it, so no matter how hard they push, you're not writing a check, then why not get the free meal or whatever,
that would
or
make
the
it
experience or whatever. So I agree with you.
I don't like this one because I feel like it just implies that there's never any good-natured gift or any event or anything that anybody does. Like always, there's a hook, and I just don't believe that. I think there are times where people are just doing it out of the goodness of their heart. I really do. I know that maybe sounds naive, but I hate being skeptical of everywhere I go, thinking that, okay, what's the hook here? What are they trying to get from me? And it's like, maybe nothing. Maybe they literally got money to gift out and they just wanted to do it because it was a cool thing to do. Those are not the most common. I do think there's a lot of hooks on different free events, but there are some out there. And I don't love, I guess, operating under that skepticism and just being like, okay, because then I don't enjoy it. Then I'm always looking for what's the catch? What do I have to say no to? I have to like prepare myself. And then that diminishes even the enjoyment of whatever you're doing because you're just constantly looking for the angle, trying to figure out what's going on. I don't know.
How many times have we given away or tried to give away free classes or workshops or tools or resources? Our case recently here, because BCU is making some of these available, so there's no hook. We're just trying to give it away. It's already been paid for. Other organizations sometimes try to do that too. Sometimes it's harder to give away free things because of the saying here, there's no free lunch. Nobody believes it. I am with you on this. This one is sometimes hard to get over. In some ways, I even see it manifest itself when you offer, hey, do you want to come to this workshop? We're doing something, or hey, do you want a copy of our book or whatever? And they're like, hey, what's the catch? We're almost conditioned to say, what's the catch? And just a kind of a unhealthy place to be when you're always looking skeptically. But sometimes it's founded. Sometimes we live in a world where there are cheaters and people out there trying to take advantage. And so you're skeptical on everything because of the one rogue element, the outliers. And so it's, unfortunately, maybe that's just a commentary on society in general, but I agree with you. Sometimes there is a free lunch. I will say that this is not a free rule. We have done some free lunches, in fact, some free dinners for people as well. So
yeah,
I've enjoyed those, in fact. So
I like it.
But those are our most hated financial sayings. And if you stick around, we are going to do another episode on some of the ones that we love, that we would date. If there were an app of financial sayings, we would definitely swipe right on them and stick with them. So we will cover those as well. But hopefully, maybe you have some thoughts on these sayings or have had your own experiences. I'd love to hear about those in the comments or email us. But otherwise, we will see you in another episode of the Life Money You podcast, where we talk about life, money, so that you can find some ideas to help yourself out in your journey to financial freedom.
All right. Thanks, everyone. It was fun going through these today.
See you later.